Right now, alarming new developments on the Korean Peninsula. As we're learning, Pyongyang is moving 2 medium-range missiles to its east coast. The North also warning Great Britain and Russia to consider evacuating embassy staff from that country, saying they cannot guarantee the safety of diplomats after April 10th. This as North Korean state television is showing students preparing for a possible military conflict. And we're learning North Korea's government-run Twitter account reportedly was hacked. The account normally posts official photos of dictator Kim Jong-un, instead publishing links to images including this one depicting the young leader with a pig-like snout. Joining us now, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Colonel Leighton served 26 years as an intelligence officer, also worked at high levels for the National Security Agency and inside the Pentagon. Colonel Leighton, of all that you've heard coming out of North Korea right now, what disturbs you or concerns you the most?
Well, I think the rhetoric in the past week, John, has been really ramped up from what we've seen in historical analysis, and it becomes a very dangerous rhetoric because of the way in which they've done it, the manner in which they've proceeded with it, and then you couple that with the deployment of the 2 Musudan missile launchers to the east coast of North Korea, and that spells a lot of possible trouble ahead.
Those missiles thought to be intermediate range, what does it mean? Where could they go?
They could go to a variety of different places. Basically, the range is anywhere from 1,500 miles to about 3,000 miles. So that would put Guam in the crosshairs of the missile, Japan, and of course South Korea. So anywhere in that swath of territory from the eastern part of North Korea on out could potentially fall in victim to the targeting of that missile.
We know that North Korea has nuclear weapons, but nobody that I've heard thinks that they have been able to miniaturize them to the point where they could actually mount a nuclear weapon on top of a missile.
That's right. They can't do that yet. And in fact, the miniaturization efforts that they've been working have not met with much success at present. They're probably about 4 years out from actually miniaturizing missile components that would allow them to have a nuclear device on top of an intercontinental missile. They are not able to do that right now. And the other thing to think about when it comes to the missiles that are out there is that their targeting capability is not that robust. They can throw the missile up in the air and it will land somewhere generally where they want it to land, but their precision targeting is not that great, and they won't be able to hit targets exactly the way they want to unless they get very lucky.
Kim Jong-un is a relatively new leader, also very young, very untested. Is this all about him trying to prove his toughness to his own military?
It's part of it, John, and I think that that becomes a key component of everything that we've heard so far. You have internal consumers of this information and of this rhetoric in North Korea, plus, of course, the external world. And internally, there's been a bit of a power struggle. He's replaced generals within the North Korean People's Army. He has replaced the prime minister with somebody who was considered to be more of an economic reformer. And what it seems to me is happening is he's trying to put together a system of governance which will allow him to maintain control through the military, but potentially at some point in time perhaps liberalize the country economically. But he will do so on his own terms, and he will do so with a strong face toward the West, toward South Korea, and even toward his nominal ally, China.
But the concern I've read among North Korea watchers is that having talked so tough and taken so many actions over the last couple of weeks, he needs to do something to show that he has a spine. Do you share that worry?
I am very concerned about that because with the type of rhetoric that you see here, it's very hard to back down from that in almost any culture. And in the Korean culture in particular, it becomes very important to save face. And the type of blustering rhetoric that we've heard puts people into a corner if they're not careful. And in his particular case, he has basically antagonized all of the countries around North Korea, not only his adversary South Korea, but Japan, which is also generally an adversary, and of course his ally China. And given all of that, he basically is forced for domestic purposes to show his strong hand, and that strong hand might mean a missile test firing over the East China Sea, which is where these missiles are poised right right now. It could also mean doing things like shelling a South Korean island, which has been shelled before, which is right off the coast of North Korea. And there are other possible provocations to include cyber provocations that could very easily happen as a result of his efforts.
Cedric Leighton, who spent 26 years in the Air Force as an intelligence officer specializing in North Korea. Thanks for your thoughts today.
You bet, John. Thanks for having me.